They say the harder the work, the greater the reward. This is our life's work.
Good morning. It is 9/10, Wednesday, August 31st. This is the TDN Writers Room, presented by Keeneland. My name is Joe Bianca. I'm the associate editor of the Thoroughbred Daily News. And for a little bit of self-promotion, I got a new episode of Better Things coming out this week. We're going to handicap for our Breeders' Cup sponsor, our Breeders' Cup partnership and sponsorship, the Flower Bowl and the Jockey Club Gold Cup on closing weekend at Saratoga. And I had a great conversation with CJ Johnson, so check it out.
Good morning. I'm Bill Finley, a correspondent for the Thoroughbred Daily News. September's upon us, Joe, and this is the thing I fear every year. My baseball team stinks. The games are irrelevant. So what do I do with my nights now? I mean, how many Seinfeld reruns can you watch?
You need a second hobby beyond the Red Sox.
I do. I need to get more to my life. You're absolutely right about that, Joe.
The TDN Writers Room is brought to you by Keeneland. Don't forget the Keeneland September sale begins Monday, September 12th. You can check out the catalog, which has over 4,100 yearlings in it at theworldsyearlingsale.com. Big Travers Day, Saturday at Saratoga. Obviously, there's a lot of action to get to from the weekend, but we'll start, obviously, with the 153rd Run Happy Travers, and Epicenter simply put on a show. I went against him the last two races. I thought he was an underlay, and he proved me wrong. Jim Dandy was great visually, didn't get a huge figure. The Run Happy Travers was great visually, and he got a huge figure. 112 buyer. That puts him right up there with Flightline and Life is Good in the top older horses in the country. To me, he's obviously going to be the 3-year-old champion unless something crazy happens and the next, maybe somebody wins the PA Derby and the Classic and the Clark or something. Seems like he's got this locked up and is well-deserved. It was a first Travers win for Steve Asmussen and Joel Rosario. I mean, the horse really deserved a Grade 1 win. With the season he's had, you could argue he was best in both the Derby and the Preakness, ran second in both. So it was really well-deserved. And even though I didn't like him at 4-5, it was great to see him have that crowning achievement in the Travers. Bill, what'd you think?
I completely agree, Joe. And, going into the race, we all thought he was, again, from a betting standpoint, I can understand why you didn't think he was a great bet. But I think, virtually everyone thought he was the best 3-year-old in the country. But he had to prove it. And, without that Grade 1 win, what was on his resume to back that up? Really nothing other than some very good performances in wins in Grade 2 and Grade 3 races. And, really strong showing in the Triple Crown, but without a win. And, now it's definitive. There's no argument. There's no debate. He is the best 3-year-old. And he did it the right way. He proved it on the racetrack, and he proved it over a really nice field. I mean, he wins by 5 1/4 lengths over Cyberknife, who's the 2-time Grade 1 winner of the Haskell and Arkansas Derby. Zandon wins the Bluegrass, runs third in the Kentucky Derby. He's third. Rich Strike, fourth in the race, was the winner of the Kentucky Derby. So it's not like he beat up on a bunch of tomato cans or anything like that. He goes out there, he does what he's supposed to do, he wins the race. And I'm glad you mentioned that buyer figure too, because it's not the be all and end all, but if he came out of the race with a 99 or a 101 or a 102, you'd say, well, okay, he's a good 3-year-old, but he's not as fast as the top 2 older horses that lead that division, as you mentioned, in Flightline. Now, numbers-wise, he's right in the thick of things with them. So, going forward, let's assume, and I'm sure we'll talk a ton about Flightline later on in the show, but if Flightline wins the Pacific Classic and Life is Good, I don't think they've said whether or not he's running in the Woodward or not, but if everybody goes into the Breeders' Cup sort of at the same level where they're at now, you can certainly make a case now for Flightline winning that race. That, of course, would make him not only the 3-year-old champion, but the horse of the year. And, he's had a really great campaign. I even have a wacky theory here, and bear with me on this. Early voting, if not for early voting, he might have won the Triple Crown. And here's why. Bear with me. If Chad Brown decided to run in the Kentucky Derby with early voting, who just about any other trainer would have done after he ran well in the Wood Memorial, then Rich Strike wouldn't have gotten in the race. He would have been the 22nd horse, not the 21st. So when Ethereal Road came out, he wouldn't have got in. This is all, I get it, really hypothetical. But then you could say that Epicenter would have won the Kentucky Derby. And if early voting ran up the track in the Kentucky Derby, he would, or even if he ran well, Chad Brown's never bringing him back in the Preakness. So then Epicenter would have won the Preakness too. He is the unluckiest good horse we've seen in a long time. But the bad luck is in the rearview mirror. It's all, the wind is at his back, and he is a very good racehorse.
Well, and he's had a great campaign going all the way back to January and February. That's what I love about his campaign is he didn't run his first race in April. He hasn't run 3 or 4 times. He's run a half dozen times now and has showed up every single time, and that's what you want in a champion for sure. And yeah, it was like I said, it was a crowning achievement for him, and it's an interesting theory about early voting and the way he might be the fly in the ointment. So the discussion now turns to how he stacks up with the top older horses in the country, and it honestly would be shocking to me if he became horse of the year just because who he's going up against, just because it's so stacked in the older male division. But putting up that figure, putting up that performance, I wrote on Twitter, it was the 4th fastest Travers in history. And Travers has obviously been run for over a century and a half. I think it was General Assembly, Arrogate, and then one other one I'm forgetting that were faster than him at 2 minutes and 75 hundredths. And he was geared down by Joel Rosario. So that was a special type performance. And we've seen a lot of special performances actually in the Travers in recent years. You think of, Tis the Law, Epicenter, Arrogate, horses that really stake their claim in that race. And that's what you want to see. It's the Midsummer Derby for a reason. I know Naira doesn't want to call it that anymore because it's technically late summer, but it's a race that should be kind of a launching pad to the second half of the year for potential champions. And that's what it was here. I guarantee everybody on that racetrack and everybody producing the TV show is glad as hell that Chad Brown did not win that race. That would have been super, super awkward because it would have been his first Travers win, so they would have had to make a big deal out of it. But obviously with the arrest in the close rear view, it would have been super awkward. But anyway, let's go on to the rest of the card, and then
Joe, can I make one point before we move on? And you kind of brought up that, look, I mean, horse of the year, there's a long way to go. And if Life is Good or Flightline wins the over Epicenter in the Breeders' Cup Classic, I don't think he would be horse of the year. But in the NTRA poll that comes out each week, I was one of 4 people that voted for Epicenter number 1. Now, will I vote for him for horse of the year? I don't know. But the reason I did is something that you just talked about. And, voters in the horse of the year and the industry as a whole, we've got to kind of come to grips of what we're going to do with horses that have 3 race campaigns, which is what Flightline is going to have this year. And to me, is Flightline a better horse than Epicenter? Probably. And that's saying a lot because I'm a big Epicenter fan. We'll know more after the Pacific Classic. But, the definition of horse of the year, like you said, he's been slugging it out since, was it March or February? He ran back 2 weeks after the Kentucky Derby in the Preakness. I'd love to see him now go in the Pennsylvania Derby or something like that. But, it's 2022. They don't do that with good horses anymore. Everybody coming out of Saratoga is see at the Breeders' Cup. But to me, if the horse of the year race ended today, I would vote for Epicenter because that's the term horse of the year. He's had a real campaign. He's been running hard. He's been running often. He's been good. I realize only 1 grade 1 win, but stacking up against Flightline, who's run 1 time this year, 1 time. And, come time to cast my ballot for horse of the year, I will have those sort of things in the back of my mind. I was even for a while thinking maybe Jackie's Warrior, and I'm sure we'll get to him as well, might have been a worthy horse of the year candidate with him losing in the forego. Maybe not now. But, this is going to be a big issue going forward. Does a horse who only runs 3 or 4 times a year really deserve to be horse of the year? I'm not so sure they do.
Yeah, no, it's a definite concern, and we'll talk about it when we preview the Pacific Classic. As brilliant as Flightline is and as great as he is to watch, he's had a kind of a pretty lame campaign. Just to show up in the Met Mile and then the Pacific Classic and then presumably the Breeders' Cup Classic. As great as it is, even Ghost Sapper ran more often than that, and he's the horse that I compare him to most. Mm-hmm. And Ghost Sapper had some feet issues, and obviously we would like to see him run more in his career, but even he had 4+ race campaigns. So I agree, and I don't have a vote for horse of the year, but I'm with you that if you want to reward the longevity of a full campaign over a horse that maybe is more brilliant but has only run a couple of times, I'm all for that. I always found it weird, like when horses would come in and win the Breeders' Cup Turf from Europe, and then they would get the champion turf horse honor. It's like, yeah, I get it that they won the biggest race, but they only ran here 1 time, and you're rewarding them over the horses who have been filling these grade one turf races throughout the year, well, maybe aren't quite as good on paper, but have more earned it from a longevity standpoint. So that's an interesting conversation. I think as we get closer to the Eclipse Awards and to the Breeders' Cup, that conversation is gonna intensify, and we could do like a poll or something, do like an industry poll. What do you value more? An informal industry poll based on people's votes. What do you value more, brilliance or hardiness and being able to run a full campaign? So that's certainly interesting, because that's a debate that's going on in racing right now in terms of how often horses should run. So we'll keep an eye on that. And then we'll talk about the rest of the races coming up after this break, because I think there was enough on the undercard and throughout the country this weekend that we could fill a full segment about it. So we're going to be right back after this. The TDN Writers Room was brought to you by Keeneland. Travers Hero Epicenter was a Keeneland September sales grad selling for $260,000 from Bettersworth Westwind Farms to Winchell Thoroughbreds. His half-sister is preparing to sell this year at Keeneland September. Filly is by Tapiture and sells as Hip 1600s. 1600 Tapiture is a little underrated sire. I wouldn't sleep on him. Personal Ends and Victorious. Malathot is also a Keeneland September grad, sold for $1.05 million. Her half-sister is also selling this year at the same sale. The filly is by Medaglia Doro. You may have heard of him. He's in Book 1 as Hip 220. And in the latest Breeders' Spotlight series presented by Keeneland, Chris McGrath talks to Gainesway's Anthony Beck, whose homebred Spenderella recently won the Grade 1 Del Mar Oaks. Beck talks about how the success of Spenderella, a daughter of Gainesway stallion Cara Conti, has been a reward for his support of turf breeding. You can find the story at TDN. It's called Beck, Spending Wisely on Grass. And we'll be right back after this message from Keeneland.
When the thoroughbred world descends upon Lexington this November, there is one place you need to be. The place where history comes alive with every championship victory.
He's authentic indeed!
The place where the future is built with the fall of a gavel. The place that exists to be the heart of this industry, the center of it all. Home to the November breeding stock sale and 2022 Breeders' Cup, Keeneland.
Speightstown, Munning, Echo Town.
It's Echo Town for Joe Talamo, and Echo Town raced away.
And Echo Town is drawing away in the stretch. Echo Town wins the Allen Jerkin Stakes.
A sire line so prolific, it repeats itself. Echo Town.
The TDN Writers Room was brought to you by Coolmore. It was announced this week that champion juvenile Corniche has retired at Coolmore in America. The son of Quality Road was a $1.5 million 2-year-old and went on to claim last year's Breeders' Cup Juvenile. He was retired due to a hind joint injury. Another colt that will one day stand at Ashford is Jack Christopher, who we're going to talk about in a few minutes. Added a third Grade 1 victory on Saturday in the Grade 1 Allen Jerkin Stakes. Jack Christopher is the son of Coolmore's Munnings, of course, who had another stakes winner within the same 24-hour span when Sir Alfred James won the Russell Road Stakes on Friday. Justify also had a big weekend when his colt named Verifying, that's a half-brother to Midnight Bisou, won on debut at Saratoga. It was really bet hard in that race and lived up to it. Justify also got his fourth stakes winner as Aspen Grove won the Group 3 Newtown Anner Stud Stakes last week. So, of course, it was Travers Day, so there are a lot of Grade 1s to talk about, and also a Grade 1 on Sunday maybe to talk about as well. To me, of the biggest headline name of the undercard races was Jack Christopher in the Allen Jerkins. We were waiting to see how he would bounce back from that loss in the Haskell. I thought he looked good. I thought it was a good field. I think that there are going to be a lot of good 3-year-old turned 4-year-old sprinters and milers coming out of this division. I think overall it's a very good 3-year-old crop. I would have expected him to win by a little bit more, but 104 Beyer was never really threatened. Hard to complain too much about that effort. It'll be interesting to see how he matches up with the older horses as well, coming up in the dirt mile, I assume, or the sprint, which is where they're going. But there were a ton of big performances. Malathot got a 105 Beyer in the personal ensign. She's a horse that I think has really kind of come on now as a 4-year-old. I don't know whether it took Clairiere, it took like a real rival to get her to move forward, because I thought she was a little slow as a 3-year-old. I think as a 4-year-old, she's turned into a legitimate Grade 1 filly. Also, Cody's Wish got a 112 buyer winning the 4-go, running down Jackie's Warrior. The more I looked at that race, the more I thought Jackie's Warrior was a little bit vulnerable going 7 furlongs against a field that was the best that he's faced all year. I thought he was an underlay at 1-5. Thought he still ran great. I think 7 furlongs, probably not quite as good of a distance for him as 6 or 6.5. But Cody's Wish is a really nice up-and-coming 4-year-old for Bill Mott and Godolphin. He has a great story behind his name, too. Katie Petruniak, our associate producer, did a great story about his namesake. And if you haven't, go check it out. If you haven't heard that story, go read that, because it's an awesome story. And he's on a hell of a ride now. He just keeps winning. And I think he's the kind of horse that, even though he's got a grade 1 win now, I think, he's going to stand at Godolphin eventually, obviously. My hope is maybe they'll bring him back as a 5-year-old, because he is a potential superstar that I think a lot of people aren't talking about. A couple other races to mention, but Bill, what stood out to you from the undercard?
Well, and the Sword Dancer Gufo winning for the second straight year was the other big race. Yeah, I mean, Joe, you touched on most of them. I'll go one at a time. The Allen Jerkins, I think, Jack Christopher, considering some of the way the other races turned out, was kind of the second star of the day. I agree. Sometimes maybe it's not fair. We hype these horses up so much. If they don't win by 10 and run a 125 buyer, we tend to be disappointed. And, look, he went out there. It was a good field. He did what he had to do. He won by a length and a quarter. Was an electric performance to take your breath away? No, not necessarily. But, now, and we knew it coming in, but now it's been proven on the racetrack. I mean, this is what he wants. He wants the 1-turn sprint distance, maybe a 1-turn mile, which kind of makes it, they have a little bit of a conundrum coming up for the Breeders' Cup, because, if in a perfect world, there'd be a 7-furlong dirt race for him. That's exactly what he wants. Is 6 a little short, perhaps? And then the dirt mile around 2 turns at 1 mile. Is that something they don't want to go back to? I don't need to tell Chad Brown how to train horses, but I would think that he would be a better fit for the sprint. I wouldn't want to try him around 2 turns, even though it is only 1 mile. The biggest disappointment for the day, despite all the nice things you said, and they were all deserved of Cody's Wish, biggest disappointment of the day was of course, Jackie's Warrior. And I don't care if Cody's Wish got a 140 buyer. You don't go into that thinking Jackie's Warrior is going to lose. I mean, again, at 15 cents on the dollar, is he a great betting proposition? Not at all. And I think the commentators were saying with the biggest Saratoga upset since American Pharaoh and the Travers, probably, I can't think of any others since then. And, Pipeline did go after him early and pressed him a little bit, but they went 22-3, 45 flat. It's not like he went 21 and change, 44. And, again, it's the same sort of thing that I talked about with Jack Christopher. He ran okay. He ran second. The big number got beat by a very good horse. But, after that race in the Vanderbilt, we're thinking like, this is, the most sensational sprinter we've seen in years. I mean, that's still, I think, the race that I will remember from this meet more than any other was Jackie's Warrior in that race. So you just don't expect him to get beat. But throughout the course of his career, he has had off days like this. He did lose in the Breeders' Cup Sprint last year. And let's see if he can make amends coming up in the Breeders' Cup Sprint this year. Personal Ensign was a terrific race. Clairiere just didn't run. I mean, she just really laid an egg there. And Malathat was very good. I was a little disappointed in Latruska. I thought she was really ripe for a bounce back. And again, she ran okay. She was third, beaten 2.5 lengths. But then again, she didn't get loose in 49 or something like that, but she got the trip she wanted. She got in front, wasn't a blazing pace. And, after a sensational 2021, she's just not as good this year. And that does happen. But, the Malathat, I'm sure Clairiere will live to fight another day, I'm sure. So we'll see what happens in the Breeders' Cup distaff, of course, when the 3-year-old fillies get involved in the mix as well. Should be one of many really good races on the Breeders' Cup card. But again, a spectacular day of racing, record handle, they bet $55 million on the card. Saratoga, as I said before, it just keeps getting bigger and better every single year.
Yeah, I mean, it was perfect weather, and we actually had some good sized fields too. Like that, I think that helped. That every race wasn't a 5-horse field on Travers Day, so I think that boosted the handle as well. Just a couple other horses I wanted to mention from the weekend. How about Goodnight Olive in the Grade 1 Ballerina on Sunday? She's the kind of horse that I think could really come on in the second half of the year and take control of the filly and mare sprint division. She's by Ghost Sapper, so I'm automatically prone to love her. But she's the kind of horse who's come a long way in a short amount of time this year. And I think that she's the kind of horse that has benefited from time off earlier in her career, because she's a 4-year-old. She's getting better. So she's a really nice horse, got a 102 buyer. I think I don't know. With no Gamine anymore, I struggle to figure out who would be better than her in this filly and mare sprint division, because she beat a bunch of them. She beat a bunch of the horses that you would potentially pick as better than her, like CC, and it was a good performance, and I'm looking forward to seeing what she does next. Out in California, we had the Pat O'Brien Stakes. Laurel River ran a 108 for Bob Baffert. The demise of Bob Baffert was a little bit exaggerated. We all heard about how the 90-day suspension would ruin his career. I guess that didn't happen, because he's still winning big races every single week. And then, just when we want to go all around the country here, Art Collector, back-to-back wins in the Charlestown Classic, got that on Friday night. And then Bill wrote a story, and I love these kind of stories about these small track horses who have these big wins, and then the owners refuse to sell. Tyler's Tribe is the horse I'm talking about. He's a son of Sharp Azteca. He's running at Prairie Meadows. He's 4 for 4. He just won his stakes race by like 15.5 lengths. He's won his first 4 races by like 50-something lengths, and he's going to end up going to the Breeders' Cup. And the owners do not want to sell. That's what I love to see. You're small-time owner. You wait your whole life to get a horse like this. Who knows how good he is? You want to go along for the ride. And, it's one thing to take on a partner, but I always feel bad when the small owners have to sell their horses early on in their career, and then they go on to explode and do great things. But you wrote the story, Bill. Tell me more about Tyler's Tribe.
This is a really cool story. It's got so many layers to it as well. You covered the main points. The horse's name is Tyler's Tribe. He's by Sharp Azteca, and he costs, I think, I should know, $34,000 at the sales. Now, but first of all, nobody at the time knew that Sharp Azteca was going to have this sensational first crop. So, the fact that he was by a $5,000 sire and cost $34,000, it's not typical of that. But this horse has run 4 times at Prairie Meadows only, a couple of them in Iowa bred races. Okay, so how good can he be? He's an Iowa bred running Iowa races, but he goes out there and wins by the length of the stretch every single time. And then you have the buyer number. He ran a 94 in the race this weekend. It's called the Prairie Meadows Juvenile Stakes. That is tied for the 3rd best buyer number of any 2-year-old this year. And they're going to run one more in an Iowa bred race on October 1st. Then they're pointing for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Sprint on the turf. And you can make a case that this horse could absolutely easily win this race for this little. The trainer wins a lot of races in Iowa, Tim Martin, but it's an Iowa outfit. So that's number one. Number two. He's named for the grandson of the owner, who was 8 years old, has been battling leukemia. And I talked to the grandfather of the owner, Tom Lepek. He said the kid's doing great. He's getting much better. They're really optimistic about him. So you have that. Now, the jockey is a female apprentice by the name of Kylie Jordan. She's actually the leading rider at Prairie Meadows and was the leading rider at Will Rogers Downs. But what people wouldn't be speed dialing Gerardo Ortiz's agent to say, hey, we want you to come ride this horse in the Breeders' Cup? And these people have said no. She's our rider. She has done a great job. There's no reason to take her off. So presumably, if he gets that far, it's going to be ridden by an apprentice, at that a female apprentice, in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. I mean, this is such a cool story. And he's not. The buyer number alone is what tells me he's not a phony. Could he get beat in this race? I mean, I'm sure Wesley Ward will have 6 in there or something like that, and maybe Aidan O'Brien will have a horse or something like that. But that 94 buyer, if he takes to the turf, I don't see why he wouldn't. This horse absolutely could win this race. And who knows? I mean, try to stretch him out next year. Could we be talking about this horse as a Kentucky Derby candidate? Maybe not. Maybe he's just a sprinter. But what a fun story this horse is. Yeah,
absolutely. It was a great story. I love, that's what we like about racing. Like it's the great equalizer. A good horse can come from anywhere. A good horse can have whatever pedigree, can be ridden by whatever horse. If they're fast, they're fast. And I watched that race. I was working on Sunday, and we pick up the races from the night before, and so I watched that race and wrote about it. And yeah, he looked great. He looked like a speedball superstar, honestly. And obviously, you don't know what's behind him, but you can tell a fast horse. Just even if they're just running by themselves, you can tell That's a really fast horse. And it's interesting that they're going to go to the juvenile turf sprint rather than the juvenile, because he's only run at a sprint distance so far. I think that the temptation would be to go for the bigger purse, the higher profile race, and run in the juvenile, especially since he hasn't run on turf yet. They're basically assuming he's going to like turf because, Sharp Aztecas have been okay on turf. He's by Freud. Freud is a turf influence. Not sure so much about the dam side pedigree, but that'll be interesting to see if he does win that race at 5.5, what the next step would be. Because obviously with any kind of fast 2-year-old, the ultimate goal is going to be the Kentucky Derby. Now, that may or may not work out depending on his distance limitations, but I would be fascinated to see after the Breeders' Cup what the next step is for him. You said he's running one more time before the Breeders' Cup. How long? Do you know how long that race is, Bill?
It is definitely a sprint. I assume it's 6 furlongs. Okay. It is Thoroughbred, so he'll be 1 to 1,000. He'll win by 15 lengths again. And then again, like the main question is, can he handle the turf? But that Sharp as Attack, another Sharp as Attack. Didn't he win the Tyro Stakes on the turf at Monmouth? So, I mean, it's early on. We don't have a lot of data to go on, but at least there's one example. Sharp as Tech already has a stakes winner on the turf. So, can he transition? And the guy's right. I wouldn't try him in the juvenile at this point. You're going from 5.5 and 6 furlong races at Prairie Meadows into 1 mile and 1/16 against the best 2-year-olds in the country. I think this, despite the unknown of the grass, I think they're spot on here. I think that's by far the best fit. And, and again, he can win this race. Absolutely can win a Breeders' Cup race. It would not be a shock at all.
Yep. Well, that's what I think people love about the TDN and the writers' room, that we cover all bases. Bill moved slightly from Finer Park over to Prairie Meadows to find the next sensation, and it's a great story. You should check it out if you haven't, and we'll keep an eye on that horse going into the Breeders' Cup, because if he does win again by 20 lengths, he's going to be one of the big stories on Friday, at least at the Breeders' Cup. I think there are going to be a lot of eyes on him because people do like that kind of like that underdog story from the other side of the tracks horse, going all the way back to Smarty Jones for me. Like that's catnip for the media, and it's Bill's first on it. So it's shout out to Bill for that. So the TDN Writers' Room is brought to you by the KTOB. We're looking forward to the upcoming Kentucky Downs meet, which starts tomorrow. It looks like there's going to be some quality fields shaping up for the first few days. Can't imagine there won't be a bunch of gigantic fields and low takeout. It's going to be a great meet, as it always is. It'll include Pixelate looking to defend his title Saturday in the Mint Million Stakes, as well as Grade 1 winner Campanelle making her next start in the Grade 3 Ladies Sprint. Kentucky Bred swept all 5 Grade 1s on Saturday at Saratoga, with Epicenter in the Travers, Gaffoe in the Sword Dancer, Malathot in the Personal Ensign, Jack Christopher in the H. Allen Jerkins, and Cody's Wish in the Forego. Find your Kentucky Bred in just a few weeks at the Keeneland September sale, which runs from September 12th to September 24th. And we'll be right back after this message from the KTOB.
With some of the fullest fields in the country and quality racing year-round, there's never been a better time to reap the rewards of breeding and racing in Kentucky. Purse money in Kentucky is at an all-time high, as is average purse per race, outpacing California, Florida, and New York. Kentucky Breds. Breed them, raise them, race them. We all win.
Quality Road, proving Lane's End's tried and true stallion-making tradition, a tradition that leads to success for our partners and our stallions. Quality Road has sired multiple Eclipse Award and Grade 1 winners, including champion 2-year-old colt Corniche, champion 2-year-old filly Caledonia Road, champion 3-year-old filly Abel Tasman, and multiple Grade 1 winner City of Light. He's a leader of his generation. Quality Road, a stallion that stands above the rest.
The TDN Writers' Room is brought to you by Lane's End. The Lane's End Stallion of the Week this week is Quality Road. He's the sire of recently retired champion Corniche, Grade 1 winner this year in Bleecker Street, as well as Carmel Road, who broke his maiden impressively at Del Mar last Friday. Quality Road stands for $150,000 at Lane's End. Guessing there's going to be a bunch of Quality Roads up for grabs, and book one at Keeneland September. We talked to Mark Taylor yesterday, who's the CEO TaylorMade Sales. Obviously, he's in the news, and TaylorMade's in the news because it's the success of Not This Time, who's the sire of Epicenter and a bunch of other top horses. He's also prepping for Keeneland September, so check out our interview with Mark Taylor. The Green Group Guest of the Week is sponsored by The Green Group, an accounting, tax, consulting, and advisory firm specializing in the thoroughbred industry With over 500 clients in the horse business, they have proven strategies to save you taxes. Learn more about how they can help you at www.greenco.com. So we're thrilled to bring back on the show this week. I'm so glad he's here at a very busy time for TaylorMade Sales. The CEO of TaylorMade, Mark Taylor. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, glad to be here. Very grateful to be back on the show, and a lot of stuff going on, a lot to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I was saying off the air, you had our highest rated episode ever last time. So we'll see if we can follow that up. Listen, it's a very exciting time for a lot of reasons. You got Keeneland September coming up. We're going to ask you about that. But mainly, first and foremost, I want to ask about Not This Time. We had you on 2 years ago, and it was when Not This Time's first horses were on the track. And it was an exciting story about maybe a non-traditional stallion station that has this really fun freshman sire. But now he has established himself clearly as one of the top young sires in the game. Take us through the process of the last few years and how much maybe he's exceeded even your high expectations.
Well, you never can predict that a horse is going to do what Not This Time has done. We've been down this path before. We had St. Bellotto, who led the General Sires list. We had Unbridled Song, who led the General Sires list. And then we've had a lot of horses who never even got close to leading the General Sires list. So when a horse starts out and they're showing promise, people love their babies, the market is reacting positively to them, you feel the momentum building, but then you don't know what's going to happen when the racetrack acid test really happens. And so he's just a horse that's gone from strength to strength, and at every stage he's excelled. And we're very blessed to have him on our farm, and he just keeps ratcheting up from one level to the next. And we don't know where it's going to land him, but it looks pretty promising right now.
Hey, Mark, thanks for joining us today. And going back a couple of years when Unbridled Song died and then California Chrome was sent to Japan, kind of quiet years for TaylorMade so far as the stallion ranks are concerned. But now it's not just Not This Time. You got Nixco, Tacitus, Instagram, and Still Regard, and more. It looks like you guys have jumped right back into things. Take us through the transition from the quiet period to a period now where TaylorMade is really flexing its muscles when it comes to stallions.
Well, I think that to understand our situation, you have to realize that, Aaron Jones was a great benefactor of ours, and he and his wife, Marie, that they put faith in us and empowered us to go get in the stallion business. Them, and I have to say, Ernie Paragallo sent us Unbridled Song when we were very unproven. So, we got a lucky break there, and really Aaron Jones believing in us, and he had the financial backing to let us play and get prospects that we believed in. And when he passed away, that was a big void left in our stallion operation, because the Taylor family, every dollar we've ever made has been in the horse business, and we don't have the deep pockets to go stretch and land these absolute no-brainer prospects. So it's kind of a Moneyball, approach that we got to try to find horses that we can afford, that we think have enough of the base criteria to plug into our customers' mare base, and then see where that takes us. So, it was 9 years from, it's been 9 years ago since Unbridled Song passed. And, a horse like this, we just have to give a lot of credit and a lot of thanks to the Albaugh family. Because the cool thing about Not This Time is he was born on TaylorMade, he grew up on TaylorMade, and everything just seemed to come together where he was destined to come back home. If he would have won the Breeders' Cup as a 2-year-old, probably somebody with a lot more money would have landed the horse. But it was a short-term setback and a long-term benefit for us.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. That it was only like a neck or a half length, and that might have changed the fortunes of a couple different stallion farms. It's an interesting game in that way. When young stallions start to prove themselves and start to blow up, their sons become more valuable. We've seen that with Gunrunner already. They snapped up Cyberknife to stand him. Do you have like a specific interest in standing sons of Not This Time? Or are you going to just let the market fall the way it is with his sons?
Well, we have to take what the market's going to give us. We have a lot of interest. Epicenter, I would run through, a burning building to try to get that horse to TaylorMade, because I think a lot of our, the one negative side to all of Not This Time's success is his stud fee is going to go, if he continues on this trajectory, his stud fee is going to go to the point where he graduates out of the real comfort zone for a lot of our core customers. So if we could bring in one of his sons, a lot of those people that rode the wave and had success with Not This Time, I think they're naturally going to gravitate to try to do it again. But we're looking for any horse really to regardless of who they're by, that just fits those criteria. You know, we're looking for a horse. We have to have a horse that we feel is going to produce good looking foals. You know, regardless of all the other attributes, if they don't make good looking babies, it doesn't really work for our customers because we're a very commercial enterprise. And that was the beautiful thing about St. Bellotto and Unbridled Song. And it's also the beautiful thing about Not This Time is he really throws gorgeous foals. He helps a lot of his mares physically, and he moves them up on the racetrack. And that's what our core customer is looking for.
Mark Keeneland, September's right around the corner. When it's all said and done, as pertains to TaylorMade, what are going to be the big headlines? What are you looking forward to most? Got any hot prospects that you want to let people know about right now?
Well, I think in general, what we're trying to do, just to give you an overview of, you know, we're the largest consignor, and usually we're kind of a microcosm of the market. And I've heard that a lot of people that are out looking at yearlings saying this is a good yearling crop. And internally, we feel like this is a good crop. Like the whole time, the babies we've raised on the farm, we were like, man, there's just when you're going around looking at them, there's a lot of them that you're excited about. And I think some crops do ebb and flow on quality, and I feel like this is a good one. Our numbers are down in Keeneland September about 8%, and some of that is intentional. You know, we're trying to focus on quality more and more. We never want to be too exclusive where we're, not willing to serve, middle market customers. I mean, that's who helped us become TaylorMade. But we're also not chasing everybody that's got a registered foal. And I think, we're really trying to not grow in terms of volume. We're trying to grow in terms of quality. And I feel really good about our quality going into September. There's a lot of superstars. I could go down through a long list. But, just to give you a couple, American Pharaoh is a horse that we raised on TaylorMade. I think he's had amazing success as a stallion internationally. He probably needs one or two more classic dirt kind of horses over here. But we've got a filly right out of Not This Time's family. It's an American Pharaoh filly out of a mare named Taylor S., who was a black type Medaglia d'Oro, half to Not This Time in Liam's map. And this is just one of the best fillies we've raised on the farm, I think, in the last decade. She is just a stunner, and I can't wait for people to see her. There's another colt that I'll just mention because he's got a soft spot in my heart. Justify colt out of Dream of Summer. So Dream of Summer is a mare in the same, she came to TaylorMade around the same time as Miss Macy Sue, and both of them have become just brilliant. Dream of Summer is the dam of Creative Cause, the dam of Destin, the dam of Vexatious, and she's got a Justify colt that is just gorgeous. And Justify's off to a great start. And a lot of people probably wouldn't have bred this mare. She's getting a little older, but man, she makes foals. You would never know these babies were out of a 20-year-old mare. He's just strong, stout, beautiful horse. So those are just a couple that I have a personal, attachment to. But we've got, we got around 400 and divided up. That's 100 a brother. So very manageable for us. I think we're going to have a really good, really strong September sale.
That's such a great quote, that 100 per brother, because I wanted to ask about that. I wanted to ask about your guys' process because you service so many people and you have so many yearlings. Obviously, this is the busiest time of year for you with Keeneland September coming up. Can you give the audience a sense of what the process is like, how early you start your evaluation process, how early you get that ball rolling, and then what it's like throughout the summer to manage so many horses?
Well, it's really a team effort. And I think if you look at the way we've built TaylorMade from the ground up, is originally it was just all the brothers and the Taylors and then our nephews and nieces and everybody that was dealing with the customers. But we've got really, really experienced thoroughbred advisors who I think any of them could go set up their own shingle and be very successful in their own right. But they believe in the tailor-made methodology. They believe in the way we do things, and they're very comfortable being part of a team. So it really starts with, it's not like we're just trying to hustle horses to sell. We're trying to focus on long-term relationships, helping people breed a better horse, helping people raise a better horse, giving free advice on matings, and really trying to use the power of all the information we have as a team, because we see so many horses and all that data. We can often recognize trends before other people can as far as what stallions are throwing. It starts with helping with the matings and getting the mares bred right, then helping get the foals raised right, and then selling them is just the final step in a long process. But we've got a great team of thoroughbred advisors. We got a great team of admin backup. And, I think if you were going to compare us, it's like, I've always shot for the bar to be like Todd Pletcher. If you go to his barn, yeah, he's got a lot of horses, but he's got such a systematic approach that you really get the sense that every horse is important. Every horse is getting the same treatment, and there's a master plan for all of them. And that's what we're trying to do in the sales arena.
Mark, from what we've seen so far this year, the yearling sales, the Fasig-Tipton July sale, and then particularly Saratoga, the numbers have been through the roof. And I think there's expectations that'll obviously keep up at Keeneland September. What's going on? Why in this particular year is the yearling market so strong?
Well, the one thing that I would caution, if there's people that are breeders, that are watching or tuning in, I think sometimes coming out of July in Saratoga, there can be this euphoria like, oh my gosh, the market is rolling. And I, of course, hope that it continues to roll. But I do think that group of horses is a little bit insulated. You've had relatively small catalogs between July and Saratoga. You've got hand-picked horses on conformation. So in general, they should all be good-looking horses. Fasig's got a good selection team. The consigners do their part to bring the right product. And definitely you've got plenty of money to go around. The pinhookers had a good year this year. They're the backbone of July. And then you get to Saratoga, a lot of those buyers up there, even if they were going to ratchet down their budget in 2021 and say, I think I'm going to spend 25% less, they're probably not going to cut out the Saratoga experience, because it is an experience. It's not just buying horses. It's a social atmosphere. It's intertwined with the racing. And it's just it's a place a lot of people want to sign a ticket. So that's the cautionary side, that if Saratoga wouldn't have been good this year, I would have been really worried, because it was set up. A lot of those people that play on the top end are pretty insulated from stock market volatility and stuff like that. As we get into September, we've got a lot more horses, a lot bigger community from all over the world coming together. A lot of things that are happening in other parts of the world might come home to roost a little more. So I guess my message is, we've got great purses. That's driving a lot of this activity. We've got, despite a lot of crazy things that are going on in the world, there's still a lot of people that have done really well through COVID and made a lot of money, and they're part of our core audience. But we've still got our biggest hurdle to jump over, which is Keeneland September. So the jury's still out. When we get into books 3 and 4, are we still feeling the same way? Or did we say, hey, we hit a little bit of maybe a plateau or a lull here? So we still got to see. I'm going to be telling all of our sellers, don't have your head in the clouds. You look down and you say, oh, there was a gun runner that brought 650 at Saratoga, and I think mine's just as good a mare, and blah, blah, blah. But sometimes there's a fine line between, especially with the big stallion books, there's a fine line between the one that brings 650 and the one that brings 325. Sometimes it's a 5% difference on the physical. So you have to be smart. You got to know the market, and you can't get way out ahead of yourself on what you think is going to happen.
So obviously you guys are having success with TaylorMade Stallions. We know a lot about the team, we know more about the team for the sales side of the business, but can you tell us a little bit more about the team for the Stallion side?
Well, I give my brother Ben a ton of credit. He is the most quiet tailor. He's behind the scenes. But I think you could argue that he's had the biggest impact on our success overall of our brand. He's really passionate about managing these stallions. He tries to protect them. We're the sellers, and we want to add mares, because we don't like saying no. But he tries to protect our horses, increase the longevity, and he's got a great team. Travis White has been with us for over a decade. Great guy, very talented. Liam Benson helps with selling the seasons and is a utility player for the whole team. And he's got Wendy Upton and Tina Miller that have been with Ben for a long time and take good care of the customers, getting contracts, booking the mares. So we've got it's a real family affair in our stallion operation. It's a smaller boutique stallion roster, but we're very lucky to have owners that support us and believe in us, sending us their horses. And we're very blessed to have a great management team. And I'm just happy for them. They put in so much work. And not every horse hits, but now they've got one that it looks like can stick around for a long time and really be the anchor of our operation.
Mark, there's been changes in the management of TaylorMade. Your brother Duncan, who was the CEO for such a long time and did such a tremendous job, has stepped aside, and you are now the CEO. How has that changed your role, and how has it changed, if it has changed things much at all, the way things are now run at TaylorMade?
Okay, so the changes at TaylorMade, it's been an interesting dynamic because Duncan, he founded TaylorMade, and he, in many ways, shaped the company we've become. And he did a lot of the heavy lifting early on when the odds were certainly against him. I mean, he was, pretty much a nobody and had to carve out his niche in the business. And he was generous enough to structure it where Ben, Frank, and myself could come in and join him as time went on. And so, having him change roles was definitely a big shift. It's like Lee Iacocca or somebody, changing roles at Chrysler. Like he's the iconic person who started it. But to his credit, he also has been working on succession planning for a long time, probably for 20 years. We've been talking about it and preparing for it. And I would also say that, he's a servant leader. So even though his name's not on as CEO and he's handed that off to me, he's still around every day. He's there to ask questions too. And then I'm constantly comparing myself. I'm asking myself, how would Duncan handle this? And I think the main thing is, I'm going to have my style. Duncan is much more of a driver. I'm more of a harmonizer, trying to get people to work together and maybe not as forceful of a leader. But as far as our core principles of putting the customer number one, having a total focus on honesty and transparency, and taking care of our people who work for us too, that's the backbone of TaylorMade. And I'm very cognizant of not letting that slip or let that change. We've also got the next generation that's coming up, both relatives and non-relatives that are taking more responsibility and taking key roles. So Duncan's still in the house. And in some ways, Duncan is actually, I think, freed up to help us in more ways right now because he's not burdened with the day-to-day CEO role. He's really given some great consultation work with top customers and helping them with their programs and making decisions. And I see a lot of positives coming out of that too. And my brother Frank has done a great job stepping into my sales role. And I think a fresh approach to that has really kind of shaken things up in a good way. So I think it's all been positive, and my goal is just not to mess it up. That's number one.
I think they're going to be just fine with you at the helm, Mark. We always appreciate talking to you. Always appreciate the insight. Congratulations on all the success from Not This Time, and best of luck at Keeneland September.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Enjoyed being on. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate the show.
Yep. Great to talk to you. The Green Group Guest of the Week is sponsored by the Green Group, an accounting, tax, consulting, and advisory firm specializing in the thoroughbred industry. As this week's Green Group Guest of the Week, Mark Taylor will receive a free 1-hour tax consultation. Learn more at greenco.com. We'll be right back after this message from the Green Group.
Why do the most successful owners, breeders, and horsemen select the Green Group as their tax advisor? We simply save them money and know how to make them more successful. Over the past 40 years, founder Leonard Green has owned and bred some of the best racehorses in the history of the sport. His in-depth, hands-on industry knowledge, combined with cutting-edge tax-saving strategies, has produced positive results for his clientele and has made the Green Group the top-rated accounting and tax firm in the business. For a confidential and complimentary consultation, contact us at 732-634-5100 or visit our website at www.greenco.com. The Green Group, proven strategies to save you taxes.
The TDN Writers Room is brought to you by XBTV. This week's XBTV workout of the week is Flightline. We might be talking about a bit in the next segment or in the next week or so. He works Saturday at Del Mar, going 5 furlongs and 59-3 as he prepares to make his next start this Saturday in the Grade 1 TVG Pacific Classic. With closing weekend on the horizon for both the Saratoga and Del Mar meets, XBTV has already uploaded almost 2,000 morning workout video. It's a great tool for handicappers. I tell you that every week, and horsemen too, to access the nation's top horses and future stars. Do a little scouting as well. So go check them out at xbtv.com. So here's the weekend preview segment, sponsored, of course, by Three Chimneys. Closing weekend, Labor Day weekend. Bill, the summer is coming to an end. It happens so fast. All eyes are going to be on Flightline. There's a bunch of action at Saratoga that we'll get to, but you got to start with Flightline in the Pacific Classic. This is the biggest test of his life by far, just based on the fact that he has to go 1.25 miles. You know, I know he had a formidable foe in Speaker's Corner, we thought, in the Met Mile. You know, the Malibu, we thought maybe had a couple of okay horses last year. In retrospect, he was so much better than everybody else in all of those races. And up to 1 mile, I don't think that there's a better horse than him in America. I don't know that there's been a better horse at 1 mile in the last 10, 20 years than him. But now he's got to go 1.25 miles, which is obviously the distance of the Breeders' Cup Classic. Looking at his potential competition, you know, it's not going to be a total walkover. You know, there are going to be horses who have been proven at this distance and at this level, namely Country Grammar, who we saw earlier this year win the Dubai World Cup at this distance. We also have Royal Ship, who won the San Diego earlier this meet. Express Train, who's a Grade 1 winner at 1.25 miles. Stiletto Boy, a couple of other, maybe 1 or 2 other California also ran types. Not this, I mean, Stiletto Boy's run some okay races, but in terms of the big names to tackle Flightline, Country Grammar is the biggest name so far, I think. Bill, how do you feel? He's going to be 1 to 5. Do we like Flightline going 1.25 miles, or are we waiting to see?
Well, yeah, I do. And that's certainly not going out on a limb. But you know, one of the things about this ratio is, as much as we lament the fact that this horse now runs so infrequently, when he does run, it's such a treat because it's something, it's like Christmas. We get to see it, you know, Christmas plus July 4th and Thanksgiving. We get to see those things 3 times a year. And, you know, we're going to get to see him 3 times this year. You know, you're right about the, you know, the distance being the question. And, you know, I don't think Country Grammar, you know, is as good a horse as Flightline, but he's a legitimate Grade 1 1.25 horse. And I'm okay with him losing to San Diego. It was his first race back coming out of Dubai. Obviously, Baffert was gearing him up for this race. But, you know, go back to Jackie's Warrior. You know, these races, they do have, it's a cliche, but they do have to run the things. And so, you know, we can't just say at this point he's going to win. But, you know, the whole thing about him going 1.25 miles, you have to take the pedigree into account. You know, when Jack Christopher struggled going 1.125 miles, you know, he's by Munnings, very good sire, but, you know, you're not thinking of Munnings as somebody who's necessarily going to throw 1.25 miles, 1.125 horses. His horses by Tappet. And, you know, there's hundreds of Tappets out there that have been good going 2 turns, 1.125 miles on the dirt. So you don't think because of his breeding he's going to have any problems, or from his running style. And again, I'll say this: if he wins by a half a length, I'm going to be disappointed. There's just a magical element to this race. Like, it's almost like, we can't even believe what we're seeing. And I want to see him go out and win by 12 lengths again, pulled up at the 16th pole, and run a 118 buyer. And the fact that that's possible is what makes this horse so cool and so much fun to watch. Yeah, I wish he ran 8 times this year. Yeah, I wish they're going to bring him back next year. I don't think they've said publicly what they're going to do, but it's hard to imagine that he wouldn't be retired at the end of the year. And I, as a fan, look, unless I fall in love with somebody that I think will definitely run second, I don't think I'm betting the race. What's a Flightline Crunchy Grammar Exact is going to pay, what, $380 or something like that? So there's not much to get excited about from that standpoint. But it's must-watch television. We'll all be tuned into TVG at this race will probably go off about 9 o'clock Eastern time. And I want to see Flightline go out there and just make our jaws drop again.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're looking for. And like you said, lamenting how infrequently he runs, it's only because we love watching him so much. If he was a bum, we wouldn't care if he ran 3 times a year. We want to see him more often, but I get it. I get that he's had some minor physical issues in the past, and he's so valuable and so brilliant. I get why they're cautious with him. But yeah, that builds up the hype even more, how infrequently he runs, that when he does run, you're like, I want to see something special. You gotta run like 158 to impress Bill this Saturday in the Pacific Classic and win by 8 or 10 lengths. And, like I said, it's not going to be easy because it is a legitimate grade 1 field. And until they go that 1.25 miles, he hasn't even been 2 turns. He's been a mile, been a 1-turn mile. That's it. He hasn't even been 2 turns, much less 1.25 miles. It's a tough betting race, like you said, unless you fall in love with somebody else. I'm glad that for better things this week, we're handicapping the Flower Bowl and the Jockey Club Gold Cup instead, because I think those are going to be more fertile betting races to try to pick somebody who can win at a price. But anybody who's taking a shot against Flightline, I tip my hat to you, because I'm just going to be watching. But I think this is the time to do it. If you're going to take a big shot against him at a really short price, this is the time. And I think what's going to be so key is whether or not he's going to be able to switch off and relax. Because like I mentioned, Stiletto Boy, watch him win now that I called him an also Ram. That'll be the next Remy cartoon. It'll be still Stiletto Boy yelling at us. But the thing about his presence is that he's speed. And I think that's key, is that, we'll see what happens at the draw. But Flightline, depending on where he draws, is probably going to have to at least send a little bit early just to get in position and be up near the lead, because that's where he wants to run. Like, maybe not. Maybe he'll drop back to 5th or 6th and make a big run. But I think a horse with his kind of speed, you got to be up there near the lead. And maybe he just gets sucked in a little bit to too fast of a pace. Anything can happen on the racetrack. Like you say, that's why they run the races. And to me, this is the most exciting race that Flightline has run so far. The other ones, I think, were more of a fait accompli, where we expected him to win, and it would have been a complete stunner if he had lost. I don't think it'll be a complete stunner if he loses on Saturday, if the 1.25 miles gets him and he gets a little tired late in the last furlong. I wouldn't be completely shocked, but that's the intrigue, is to see what he does going that classic distance, because he's going to have to do it against a better field, against these horses and then some, in the Breeders' Cup Classic with other speed. So this will be a nice little appetizer for that. And I'm curious that if he doesn't win, if he does come up, lagging a little bit in the stretch, if they reverse course and go to the dirt mile, or if they stick with it and try to go for the Classic, because I don't know that he's going to win Horse of the Year if he just has the Met Mile win, maybe a second on Saturday, and then the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile win. I don't think that's going to be enough to do it for him. So I think it's full speed ahead to the Classic, but we're going to find out a lot more on Saturday. Obviously, there's some undercard races at Del Mar I should mention as well. It's a big weekend at Del Mar. They have the Del Mar Handicap and the Del Mar Mile on Saturday as well. Both grade 2s. The Del Mar Handicap is a Breeders' Cup win, and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Turf. And on Saturday, they've got the Green Flash, which is a grade 3 win, and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, the Torrey Pine Stakes on Saturday as well. But we got some action at Saratoga to talk about that we're going to get to right after this break. This weekend preview is brought to you by Three Chimneys. Sharp Azteca, who we talked about earlier, was well represented over the weekend with undefeated multiple stakes winner Tyler's Tribe, who got all of our writers' room eyes on, romped in the Prairie Meadows Freshman Stakes. Shout out to anybody in Iowa that watches the show. We're watching you guys, and we're excited anytime a small track comes up with a really good horse. Tyler's Tribe is now 4 for 4 as he looks to the Breeders' Cup. Sharp Azteca also has another impressive 2-year-old. And Sharp as Attack, Bill, you should just do this. You teed up all of this Sharp Azteca stuff for Three Chimneys. Sharp as Attack, who Bill mentioned, won the Tyro Stakes in his last start. And fellow Three Chimneys sire Funtastic had a Saratoga maiden winner over the weekend with Funtastic again, who's owned by Three Chimneys and trained by Wesley Ward. Funtastic, who's a Grade 1 winning son of More Than Ready, is represented by his first crop of 2-year-olds this year. We'll be right back after this message from Three Chimneys.
Here comes Taba. Taba in the center of the track with good-looking strides. Squares off with Cyberknife. Cyberknife takes the lead. Taba going with him. These two in a thriller. Cyberknife just in front. And Cyberknife has won the TVG.com Haskell over Taba. Jack Christopher finished third. The running time 1 minute 46.24 seconds.
Gun runners on top of the world!
Come, dream with us at Three Chimneys.
And it's all Tyler's Tribe to the final furlong. He's putting on another show tonight. He is 8 lengths in front. Now it's 10, now it's 12. Tyler's Tribe pouring it on as they come down to the line. He's going to win by double digits, and he stops the clock in 104.
Let's run down the rest of the graded stakes action that we're looking forward to this weekend. I don't want to slight Kentucky Downs because Kentucky Downs opens tomorrow, which I mentioned before. I mentioned earlier, I talked to CJ Johnson on Better Things. He's the guy one of the guys that really jump-started the Kentucky Downs program, and now it's a real marquee boutique meet. They're gonna have a bunch of stakes on opening weekend. They have the Juvenile Philly Stakes, the Juvenile Mile, the Mint Million, which is a Grade 3. They have the Big Ass Fans Dueling Grounds Derby on Sunday, as well as the Dueling Grounds Oaks. So that's always appointment viewing for me. Love that track. Love that wagering product. So didn't want to slight them. But other than Del Mar, most eyes are going to be on Saratoga on Saturday and Sunday. This is obviously the traditional closing weekend where you have the Grade 1 2-year-old stakes. The Spinaway is on Sunday for 2-year-old fillies. And we have the Hopeful, of course, on Monday for the 2-year-old boys. John Green and DJ Stable are going to be represented in the Spinaway with Wonder Wheel. I would believe there's going to be a story about today in the TDN, so best of luck to the homies at DJ Stable in the Spinaway. But at Saratoga on Saturday, we have the Jockey Club Gold Cup, the Flower Bowl, and the Saranac. The Jockey Club Gold Cup and the Flower Bowl are winning year-in races for their respective Breeders' Cup divisions. This is the first year that I can remember ever the Flower Bowl being run as a Grade 2. It was downgraded last year, which, I don't know, once they moved these races to Saratoga, I kind of felt like they lost their place on the Belmont calendar. Like the Flower Bowl used to be real, something that trainers really pointed for with Philly turf horses. Not so much the case anymore. The Jockey Club Gold Cup might get a big field. We might have a big Grade 1 field, which would be exciting. Olympiad is going to be in there, try to bounce back from the Whitney. He really needs that kind of bounce back performance. American Revolution, who unfortunately I picked on Better Things for the Whitney, had to scratch. He's going to be in the Jockey Club Gold Cup most likely. First Captain is in there. Dynamic One, Informative, friend of the show, or we're fans more. He's not a friend of the show yet, but we're fans of Uriah St. Louis. He'll be in there. Untreated for Todd Pletcher as well. Looks like Todd Pletcher will have a couple horses. Bill, what are your thoughts on the Jockey Club Gold Cup?
Yeah, I want to interject something about Kentucky Downs as well before I'll move on to the Gold Cup. Obviously everybody's going to be looking at Saratoga and Del Mar, but if you're a horse player, do yourself a favor, bet this product on Saturday. When it comes to a betting product, there's nothing like it in horse racing. And I realize not every track can run a 7-day meet, but the gambling aspect of it is fantastic. I mean, virtually every race has 12 horses in it with a 4-1 favorite. I've hit $400 exactas there before. I mean, you can't hit, I couldn't come close to hitting. Sometimes I can't hit a $40 exacta at other racetracks. So, don't let that pass by your attention, because it is as good. I would say this from a betting standpoint, when you're looking for full fields competitive racing and reasonable takeouts, it's as good as it gets. It really is. Okay, so now the Jockey Club Gold Cup is one of those races that's struggling a little bit because of the way racing is run now, and that's why they moved it from Belmont to Saratoga. I mean, before the Breeders' Cup came along, Joe, it was a little bit before your time, but this was the most important race in the country for this division. It was the championship event. But all things considered, they came up with a pretty decent field this year. And what they're doing is, there's certain horses out there that, like a Country Grammar on the West Coast, that are 1.25 mile horses. And those are the horses that are going to go into the Jockey Club Gold Cup. Horse like First Captain, who was second in the Suburban 1.25 mile, Dynamic One, who won the Suburban 1.25 mile. Now, it gets a little tricky because we record this before the entries out, but I believe Olympiad is running in here as well. Yeah. And, he'll be the real story to me because on paper, he's the best horse, but he really didn't show a lot in the Whitney when fourth. Did he have an excuse that day? Did he just have a bad day? Will he be the real Olympiad, the horse that I know you were so high on, and rightly so, coming into the Whitney? I would think, he's the most likely winner because he's trained by Bill Mott. Bill Mott wouldn't be running him in here if he wasn't very confident that he was going to rebound. But it's a neat race. It really is. It's not the Jockey Club Gold Cup as old. It's in the Saratoga meet. It's always going to take a backseat to the Whitney. And but nonetheless, this is not a far and away. This is nowhere near a bad Jockey Club Gold Cup. It's a decent, interesting race. And Warlike Goddess in the Flower Bowl, that'll be cool. And Mott's talking about running her in the Breeders' Cup Turf against the males. So that would be really cool to see. Let's hope she goes out and backs up his confidence. And she likely will. She's really good.
Yeah, well, and he was teasing potentially running her in the Sword Dancer, and chose against it. So yeah, I would like to see her take on the boys eventually. As for the Jockey Club Gold Cup, it hurts my heart as a kid who grew up going to Belmont Park. I like you're saying, it was a little before my time when that was the marquee race, but I remember it being a huge race on the calendar for a long time at Belmont. It really was. That was the biggest day of the Belmont Fall meet by far, was Jockey Club Gold Cup Day, and obviously there's not really that marquee day anymore at Belmont. It's obviously a great high quality fall meet, but without that centerpiece, it doesn't feel the same. And I get why they did it, and I think, like you said, it'll be a good field this year with Olympia. And I think, like I said, we're going to get 9, 10, maybe 11 horses in there. We'll see when the entries come out. But I think it'll be nice to at least have a full field in that race. And yeah, Olympia needs a bounce back. I don't know if you read Junior Alvarado's quotes after the Whitney, but he was really laying into Olympia. He was like, didn't show up at all. Like, he should have at least tried. I was like, all right, he's allowed a bad race. He's had a good year. But yeah, we'll be looking for him to bounce back. So Flightline is the marquee attraction. He's on the top of the playbill, and then below it we got the Jockey Club Gold Cup, and then the Flower Bowl, and then also Kentucky Downs, like you mentioned, should not be overlooked, especially if you're a horse player. They got low takeout, big fields, turf racing. What else could you want? Definitely get involved at Kentucky Downs. TDN Writers Room is brought to you by West Point Thoroughbreds. If you somehow already didn't know, if you got through this episode and you had noise-canceling headphones on or something, this is your PSA. Flightline is running this weekend in the $1 million TVG Pacific Classic. I had to clear my throat for that one because it's so exciting. 1-5 favorite in a field of 6. The impressive son of Tappet is owned by West Point with Ronis Racing and partners. Best of luck to Terry and everybody at West Point. We're not supposed to root in this journalism business, but we definitely root for you guys because of your support and because of the longevity of West Point in the game. They're good for the game, undeniably. Also this weekend, West Point has First Captain in the Jockey Club Gold Cup at Saratoga. Son of Curlin is coming off a second place finish in the Grade 2 Suburban with Grade 1 contenders on the same day, coast to coast. It's going to be a super, super exciting day for West Point. There's actually a story in today's TDN about them kind of mirroring lives of First Captain and Flightline. So can't imagine anything better than having a horse running in Grade 1s on either side of the coast, and especially when one of those horses is a superstar in Flightline. So best of luck to all the partners at West Point, and we'll be right back after this message from West Point Thoroughbreds.
All the thrills. Fraction of the bills. Experience the power of the partnership. Change your life, make new friends, and compete at the highest level of thoroughbred racing. West Point Thoroughbreds, the gold standard in racing partnerships. Visit westpointtb.com.
Being a small family business, I guess we're part of a dying breed. We're really grateful for the people that entrust us. We know it's a huge responsibility.
We're always with your horse every step of the way. When it comes to being at the sales ground, showing your horses, we are with your horse.
Just driving up and down the road every day, there's not a time that I don't look out and feel a responsibility to the sport, the animal, the people that come to invest in the game. I want to see as many people enjoy this sport as they possibly can, because we do have the most beautiful sport in the world.
The TDN Writers Room is brought to you by Legacy Bloodstock. Legacy has almost 100 yearlings cataloged for the upcoming Keeneland to September sale, so we'll be taking a look at a few of those in the coming weeks. In the first session of Book 1, they have 2 Gunrunner colts that we previewed last week. In the second session of Book 1, they have a Curlin filly selling his Hip 318. The Chestnut is out of Grade 1 winner. Let Faith Arise. Go see Tommy and Wendy. There's only a limited amount of time to go see them and get ready for Keeneland September. They got a lot. I'm sure they got a lot on offer for every type of buyer. They'll do a great job and do right by you as a smaller shop. This week's Remy cartoon is the life of a jockey growing up. The mom's telling the young jockey, I need you to cut the grass, replace a light bulb, and fix the toilet. Then in the next panel, we got, I need you to pick me up from soccer, help with my homework, and drop me off at Danny's. In the next panel, I need you to teach me how to swim, take me to the movies, and find my Barbie dolls. And of course, in the last panel, the fancy owner telling the jockey, I need you to break sharp, lay third, and win. Jockeys do have to take a lot of instructions. I don't know if I could handle it. But the great thing about being a jockey, once those gates break, you can do whatever you want. You don't have to pay attention to the instructions at all. There's plenty of jockeys who don't do it and do just fine. I think what's the old adage, Bill? The great jockeys don't need instructions, and the bad ones don't follow them.
Don't follow.
That's how it is. So we promised you some jockeys behaving badly this week. This was reported yesterday. There was a story from T.D. Thornton, and in today's TDN was first reported by the Pollock Report, that Gerard Melanson, who is a 5,000 win jockey, he's raced mostly in Louisiana, was arrested, I believe in Shreveport, Louisiana, for allegedly using a buzzer on a horse. And not to stereotype, but this seems like to be the kind of thing that happens a lot in the Texarkana area. I remember Roman Chapa in Texas, this happening to him. I think it's happened a couple of times in Louisiana as well. I don't know what it is, but it's at least somebody stepped in and did something about it if that was what was going on. This is the first time, and Bill, I'm sure, can expound on this, but this is the first time I remember a jockey being arrested for this kind of thing. Usually they're just, suspended or ruled off the grounds or whatever. This is the first time I can remember the law getting involved. What are your thoughts, Bill?
Yeah, I mean, remember also Billy Patine in the Arkansas Derby with Val Hall at Oakland a couple of years ago. First of all, I mean, we got to be careful. Innocent until proven guilty. He has said that he is innocent. He did not do anything. So we'll see what happens here. But, there's no, if in fact he did it, there's no excuse. And any jockey who gets caught using a battery, in my opinion, at the very least, should be thrown out of the game for life. And there's no second chances. One time. Saw the kid at Monmouth, I don't even remember his name last year, got caught.
Mejia.
And they gave him a 10-year suspension. And I think the stewards recommended that maybe it turn into a lifetime ban. I think it's one of those things where that's the most the stewards can maybe give, or the Racing Commission can give, is 10 to start off. But what I found particularly interesting about this was this is being dealt with outside the racing industry. And according to the reports, he was arrested by state police and is alleged to have done something, violated law on natural stimulation. Will that mean if he's convicted, he can wind up in jail? Who knows? I'm sure it's just a misdemeanor. Maybe it would be a fine. Maybe it would be probation, something like that. But, at least in Louisiana, they've taken it one step further. And you know what? If he, in fact, did this, and this is such, again, alleged, we got to give him his day in a court. But to me, doing this is such a heinous offense that I got no problem with a guy going to jail for this, just like no problem of Jorge Navarro going to jail. This is just something that there's absolutely no place for it whatsoever. And, this is good. I think that maybe everybody else should follow this, and maybe these similar laws should be on the books everywhere. So we'll find out how this goes. Obviously, he's not going to ride while this is going on. And he was kind of tailing off in his career anyways, riding fewer horses and not winning a ton of races. But G Money, that's what they call him down there. And could he soon be not G Money, but prisoner 17358784? Very well could. And you know what, Gerard, if you did it, this is what you deserve. Yeah, no, if true, bye-bye. Like, this is the kind of thing that there could be no tolerance for ever in racing. Forget it, forget about the cruelty of it. Think about the headline. Think about people seeing that headline of a jockey shocking a horse into running faster. And it happens too frequently. Like, I see these headlines every once in a while. This should be like a once every 20 years thing, maybe. I don't understand how this happens relatively frequently in racing. And like I said, there should be no tolerance for it whatsoever. And the guys won 5,000 races. Like, it's the suggestion to me that if this is true, which is not proven to be true yet, if this is true, the guy's won 5,000 races. It's something that he's done before. I don't think that if this is true, this is the first time that this has happened. And it's completely unacceptable. And it just flies in the face of everything that we say that we're doing for the horses. And it grosses me out. And just to a larger point, like you're saying, he should go to jail if in fact he did this. Just as a societal thing, I think we're not strict enough and we don't punish people hard enough for animal cruelty. It's just ridiculous. Like, a lot of times you can do something horrible to an animal and you can pay a $500 fine, or, maybe you get like a week in jail or something. Like, I'm not saying it should be on the same level as like cruelty and violence to people, but I think it should be a lot closer. Not only because it's horrible and because animals are defenseless, but also a lot of times animal cruelty leads to cruelty against people. Like, you look at some of the history of like mass murderers and stuff, almost always they were cruel to animals and killed animals in their upbringing. And then it eventually leads to violence against people. So even if you don't really care about the animals personally, it's a warning flag thing. It's a red flag type thing that needs to be taken much more seriously by the authorities. And obviously who knows how that could possibly happen? Like, there would be PETA. Can you get on that? Like, can you get off our tip for a little bit and go try to change the laws for the animal cruelty statutes all over this country? Because they need to bump up the penalties. And yeah, I agree. If this is true, goodbye. Go to jail. Do not pass go. Do not come back to racing ever again. Okay, so that's going to do it for this week's edition of the TDN Writers Room, presented by Keeneland. Don't forget, the Keeneland September sale begins Monday, September 12th. You can check out the catalog and learn more at theworldsyearlingsale.com. I want to thank Bill Finley, our Green Group Guest of the Week, Mark Taylor, our producer, Patty Wolf, our associate producer, Katie Petruniak, and our editors, Anthony LaRocca, Aaliyah LaRocca, and Nathan Wilkinson. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy closing weekend at Saratoga and the Pacific Classic. We'll see you next week.